Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. All right, welcome in, everyone. Kevin and Angel here in the dog trainer community again. We are super excited about this one. I got a really cool topic that I want to talk about for today. And that is just the idea of like external forces in your life that you feel like may be affecting your business. So, I've been hearing from some people recently, they've been having a hard time like making sales or just running their business in general. And, maybe they're talking about the economy being the reason that they may be struggling, or back to school, or just like there's a level of seasonality to their business and stuff like this. And Angel, you and I were talking about this the other day, and I asked you, when you were training, did you notice like different parts in the year where you were like busier or slower? Did you notice any patterns and stuff like that? And we just want to talk about that a little bit today, and I'll let you kind of speak on that in a second here. But just to kind of put a final point on this, I think the main topic for today is going to be how different things can impact your business and how to go about handling that from a practical perspective as well as from a mindset perspective, and not letting it really just kind of like be something that keeps your business from growing, and also a mental crutch to stop you from growing. So Angel, why don't you talk a little bit about that and kind of what you remember and what you've experienced when you were training, and just like seasonality and stuff.
Yeah, so from what I remember, as far as like the summertime seasons, July and August-ish timeframe tend to be a little bit slower. And I think I chalk it up to be like, well, I think a lot of people think that in the summertime, people are taking vacations and people should want to take advantage of board and trains, which I think that's a really good selling point, and something that I use too, is like, we can schedule your dog's board and train during this time frame. I know you mentioned wanting to take a vacation. You can just go ahead and take it while your dog is gone. It makes sense. But again, I think I chalk it up to be like in July, the 4th of July being at the beginning of the month. A lot of the time people are just like so overwhelmed with like spending time with family and busy with that kind of stuff. And then obviously getting into school, you're spending a lot of money on kids getting to go back to school. And then also like vacations, obviously those cost a lot of money. But yeah, that is like the kind of like summertime time frame. And then same thing like wintertime. So that one is a little different, because there's a certain part of winter, like mid to end of December, where it starts to get really slow because of holidays. Again, people are with family, they're spending a crap ton of money, all sorts of things. But also I feel like in the wintertime, it's kind of like an influx. Like there are certain parts where it gets busy because people are taking advantage of like that vacation traveling kind of time, and then it gets to be like super duper slow. So yeah, those are some things that I've noticed as far as like seasonal changes from what I can remember.
Yeah. And I, something that I always think about with this, because every business experiences this, be very careful to not always be thinking and talking about that, because it's easy for an entire calendar year to go by and you're like, it's because it's back to school, or it's because we're heading into the holidays, or it's because like it's kids are getting out of school, or kids are away at camp or something like that, or families are traveling, and there's always a reason. Like there's literally always something going on, like even just on a more global scale. Like I've heard people say to me like, I think it's just people are so preoccupied by, like, as crazy as it sounds, like the war in the Ukraine or something like that, or gas prices are so high and people don't want to travel. And it's like, man, if that, I'm not saying that there's no legitimacy to that or any of this. Like, of course there's legitimacy to all of it, right? But if you find yourself like always having a reason as to why somebody is not buying from you and people aren't training with you, or you're not hitting the goals you want to hit, it's like, start looking at other factors, because like it's very easy in life to just start making things all about these larger than life external factors that you have no control over. And it's easy just to hand your will over to the universe and be like, I can't do anything about this. Like there's a war, there's a pandemic, there's a holiday, and all of a sudden, before you know it, like I said, an entire year goes by and you didn't get to the point you wanted to get to, and you're waiting for like a period of time to come where like none of that is going on. But like shocker, there's always something going on, you know? And
Mhm.
again, I'm speaking from a place of experience where I've had thoughts like this before, and I need to kind of give myself a reality check and just realize like, if I'm always thinking that there's something going on and I'm waiting for the time for nothing to be going on, and that's what's influencing the success of my business, like maybe I need to look at my business a different way. Maybe there's things I need to do in order to kind of like overcome those objections and those difficult times and stuff like that. So with that being said, I think the first thing is this: like if you're in a period where people are using like money as the main objection for you, or for not to buy from you, I guess I should say, you know, the first question you should ask yourself is like, is I or am I making this? Is I making this? Am I making this like feasible for people to actually afford? Right. So
Yeah.
if you have a $4,000 board and train and you are saying, hey, in order to get started today, you need to pay half, right? Statistically speaking, most Americans do not have $1,000 sitting in their checking account at any given time. So if you're saying to people like, hey, I need 2 grand right now in order for you to get started, you may live in a very wealthy area where, that's 60% of all Americans. And obviously that's a general statistic. But if you're just making it so difficult that such a large percentage of people can't buy from you, that's a really practical thing that you may need to evaluate and think about like, hey, what is a more reasonable deposit for me to try and secure for people, and like test
Mhm.
that. What happens if I go to 500? What happens if I go to 350? What happens if I go to 1,000? Does that affect my closing percentage? So this is all stuff that can be tracked and tested to see what works best in your market. So Angel, why don't you kind of speak on that a little bit? Because I know you do a lot of coaching on this with people, and like, what do you typically recommend to people when they're first off having a hard time securing deposits or deposit amounts and just overall dealing with like price objections?
Yeah, so I mean, I always encourage, just like you do, for people to take deposits. I kind of, but I want to kind of like go back to something you mentioned earlier as far as like other external factors and different things going on in the world. Like, I think it's super important to be mindful of those things, but not to a point where it's kind of like using it as like an excuse or a crutch as to why you're not meeting goals that you want to be. Like you see a lot of these other like big businesses, corporate businesses and stuff like that. And they're very aware of like, different things going on in the world and things that can affect their sales and stuff like that. But then you'll notice that there's like different sales that they're having, or they kind of have like a marketing tactic to kind of bring people in. So there, like you said, there's always going to be things there that can affect the sales, but it's all about like kind of working around that, because things are going to always change. Even like what's going on in the world now might be different in 6 months or a year or 2 years. So you
Yeah.
kind of just have to like work with it. And sometimes I even will like have to bring that kind of stuff to people's attention, and especially people mentioning how like owners will call them and just like always asking for prices over the phone, and they consider those people tire kickers, or they're not as serious about training. But I always tell people like, I think it's perfectly normal for people to ask prices over the phone,
Yeah.
especially, if maybe you never had a dog before, like they just got a dog, they want training, but they don't know. A lot of time people think that training is training is training.
Yep.
They don't know what type of questions to ask or what different types of training there is out there. So all they know is, okay, I want my dog trained. I just need to call and figure out how much it is. And then it's easy as that. So again, it's very normal for people to ask prices, not only because of those things that I mentioned, but also because of today's economy. So that makes it even more important to make sure that you can get in front of them and actually like show them the value in what they're going to be paying for. Because if they just talk to a stranger on the phone and you guys have like a 3-minute conversation, they don't fully know you, they don't know if they can trust you or trust you around their dog, you guys don't have any like relationship or rapport building in that 3, 8, 15-minute phone call, but then you give them a $2, $3, $4,000 price. That's not, most of the time they're not going to say, awesome, let's do it.
Yeah.
You have to obviously like sell your product, but also sell yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that because that is such a good point. And I feel like that's been mentioned in a couple of our more recent videos, which once that was explained to me, it like hit me over the head like a ton of bricks. That's like when people ask about your price, don't get offended by that. It's like that is such a normal, basic question for somebody to ask. Well, it's like
Mhm.
almost like, yeah, what else, what do you expect them to ask? It's like
Yeah.
that's a big factor to people. Purchasing decisions largely come down to that for a lot of people. It's like they need to know that in order for them to hand over their credit card. They're not just gonna be like, oh, I don't care. If it's 10 grand, it's 10 grand. If it's $10, it's $10. Here's my card. It doesn't matter to me. Like they're going to need to know what that costs. So don't get offended by that question. It's totally basic and learn how to handle it. Learn
Mhm.
how to kind of say to people, if you're not ready to give them the price yet, because you haven't done the consultation or you haven't gotten in front of them or gotten the opportunity to really talk to them and build enough value, just say like, hey, we can certainly get into that. If you don't mind, let me just ask you a couple questions first, and then we can definitely cover the investment and what all that looks like. And just brush over it. They're not going to be offended by that.
Yeah. I
Go
just
ahead.
want
What
to,
were you saying?
yeah, I just want to add something to that. So, like some people are super, super ready to go. They maybe have saved up for however long, or maybe they had this entire plan. I'm going to get a puppy. I'm going to put it through training. They have
Mm-hmm.
specific goals with their dog. So they call you and they're ready to go. And then other people, which I think a lot of dog training business owners need to like think of these other possibilities and like stages that their potential clients are in, is like, there's some people, I remember very specifically this one client I had, I'll never forget her. I'll tell you about her in a second, but some people are kind of at a stage where maybe they have never considered training ever,
Mm-hmm.
but they're in a situation where like it's either I have to get this dog trained or I have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
They're not super on board with training, but they know that they have to. And so they kind of need you to help them get past that finish line. But the
Yeah.
client that I am referring to, she had 2 dogs, I think they were both like bully breed kind of dogs, super, super bullheaded dogs. They didn't get along, so it was like inner household aggression. And it was causing issues with her and her husband, like in their marriage. And she told me that on the phone. And so she was just kind of calling around, very casually calling around.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give her any prices over the phone. I remember we met up and because I knew it wasn't going to be a thing where she's like, oh, cool, $9,000, sign me up. So it's going to take some work to get her to that point. But I was really honest with her and let her know, what we could work on, how, it's going to take a lot of work on your end, blah, blah, blah. Even, after this, like there's going to be like a good management plan before we even get to the point of like where you want to be. Cause she had those 2 big dogs and then she had a couple like small chihuahuas running around. But long story short, between these 2 dogs, it was, I think, close to $9,000 in training. She didn't live in a wealthy neighborhood, but because I met up with her and we were able to build that rapport and I was able to be completely honest with her about everything, and I kind of like helped her pass the finish line. Again, she reached out to me just kind of like casually calling around to see like if it would be worth getting them trained instead of getting rid of one of them. So yeah, like that, it's not super, super easy. It does take work helping them get there. But again, I think like people need to understand that people calling you to, ask about prices for training, they're not just ready to go. Sometimes they need help. And
Yeah.
that's what you got to do, is you got to help them get past that.
Yeah. And now, like with this person, did they immediately tell you that they were having marriage issues because of the dog, or was that something that kind of came out as you were like spoke to them a little bit more and like found out more about their situation?
It kind of came out once we spoke a little bit more, but I was able to tell just by like some comments she was making with our initial phone call that there
Yeah.
was something going on in the house and that she just needed to figure out which route to take. Getting
Yeah.
rid of the dog, getting divorced, or getting the dog trained.
Yeah. You wonder which one's like easier or more difficult, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, the reason I ask is because knowing you, like I know that you get very close with people and personal and stuff like that. And so that's something that you probably did some fact finding on. And before you know it, she was comfortable enough to share that with you. And
Hmm.
when we talk about building a relationship with your clients, like if you actually do the proper relationship building, like this is the type of stuff that people will start telling you. It's like that's the type of stuff that allows you to sell high ticket programs, is not the my dog pulls me on the leash. Like I want them to stop pulling me on the leash. It's really diving in and figuring out why, as stupid as this sounds, but why do you want your dog to stop pulling you on the leash, right?
Hmm.
Why do you want your dog to stop jumping all over people when they come through the door? It's like, what are the emotions that are underneath that, and sell them on that, the peace of mind that they're going to get, and that knowing that they won't have to go through a divorce. As
Right.
crazy as that sounds, like, hey, we can fix this. I can stop the fighting. I can fix the dog training, which will in turn like fix the fighting between you and your significant other, your spouse. Like that's
Hmm.
what people are way more willing to pay a lot of money for, is peace of mind, than just like I'll come over and give you 4 lessons where I'm going to teach your dog a couple things.
Yeah, exactly. And not to start getting off topic,
Please do.
but I
I feel
think
like this is heading somewhere really fun.
I think everyone has been in a position before where they have met someone who, runs some other business and they end up building such a good relationship with that person. Let's say like a mechanic, for example, or like a plumber. You have like a casual conversation, ends up like going really good. You learn a lot about this person. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I really, really like this person. I'm going to start using their services for literally everything. I don't care if they're more expensive than who I was using before. It's so worth it because
Yes.
they're genuinely a good person. They want to help me and all those sorts of things.
Yep.
It's the same thing for dog training, and building those relationships are super important. I remember times this one time being in a consultation and literally holding someone's baby for them. Like that's how that's how close you want to get. Maybe if
Yeah.
you're not comfortable holding their baby, don't do that. But
You're
yeah,
out
I
like
mean,
mowing their lawn and like taking out their trash. Like that's how personal you need to get with people.
yeah, like I mean, she was stressed out. She had kids and she had a tiny baby, and then she had her dog who was just causing her extra stress. So I'm like, put your dog away, give me your baby, we will talk.
That's so funny. Yeah. No, but you can't be afraid to do stuff like that. In all
Yeah,
seriousness, like going the extra mile. Like if you're holding somebody's baby, like if they trust you with their baby, they'll certainly trust you with their dog.
yeah.
And so I feel like I want to get that printed and put it on a t-shirt. That's going to be our first like line of merch we're going to sell. But I want to go back to something else for a second here, which is like also be very careful to the voices and who you surround yourself with and other people. So what I mean by that is like if you're slow and you talk to other dog trainers and you're hearing everybody slow, it's like, well, it's certainly possible that everybody's slow, or it's possible that the people that you associate with are slow. Because we can
Mhm.
tend to kind of group together with like-minded people. And I've been there myself, where all of a sudden I start like hearing the same thing, and then it becomes my reality, right? Like what I'm hearing from other people, instead of genuinely having my own experience. And to take it even a step further, rest assured that there are people in your market that are doing well. Like there's a company out there who's absolutely killing it. And whether that's a big box retailer, franchise, or just like somebody who's been in the market and does a really good job with it. And like look at those companies and realize that like if they're doing it, it's not they're not sitting there going like the economy is slow and like letting that be the reason as to why they're not successful. Yeah, their revenue may be a little bit lower than it's been at different times, and no business is perfect. I'm not saying that like no one's affected by this stuff, but there are many businesses that have been built during recessions and during economic downturns that are some of the most successful companies that exist today. So always just
Mhm.
keep that in mind and be careful who you listen to, because if you hang out with four dog trainers that are all saying they're slow, you're bound to become the fifth that's saying that. And on the
Yeah.
reverse side of things, like if you're hanging out with four business owners that are all saying like I have more work than I know what to do with, and I have a good work-life balance, and all of a sudden like you have no choice but to let that rub off on you as well, and you become the fifth.
Yeah. And also to add to that, like there's always going to be seasonal changes. Like obviously seasonal changes with like external factors, things going on in the world, the economy, stuff like that. But you don't start a business and build up a business and then basically like set everything in stone and that's how it goes for the lifetime of your business. There's always going to be things changing. There's always going to be, demand changing. There's always going to be things in the world changing. So you kind of have to like work with that and kind of like build that or build your business around that.
Yeah, I mean, you can, it's so easy just to let any event that's going on, be a reason as to why, like people, an obvious one that's going on now is there's an election coming up, right? And I've heard people say, like, oh man, all the turmoil with the election and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, if that's true, get ready every 4 years, really, like, yeah, every 4 years to hit a really difficult point in your business then,
Mhm.
Um, and just anything. Like there's always seems to be a war going on. There always seems to be something going on that's like outside of our control. Like the housing market is a problem, or gas prices are too high, or groceries, or something like that. And like I said, the obvious one is a pandemic. And the truth is you really never know how things are going to affect you too. Like you can look at that stuff and go like, oh, this is a negative. This is going to negatively impact my business. But COVID, for instance, turned out to be a really, really good time for a lot of dog training businesses, So it's just interesting how sometimes stuff that looks like it's going to be a curse kind of comes as like a blessing in disguise as well.
Yeah, and I've talked about before, I think this was around like Christmas-ish time,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, New Year's, stuff like that. But I think we had talked about it was in a group coaching call, like holiday specialty programs.
Yep.
So essentially just creating a very specific, like limited time only program. So not necessarily using your current programs and discounting them, but creating an entire new one, but it's a limited time only for those specific times of year when generally people are slower and stuff like that. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like that's just one thing that you can do to kind of like help bring more people in during a time when people are probably going to be a little less interested in training because of family time and spending a lot of money for Christmas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like an example is doing different things like that that are going to help boost those leads during times that are
Yes.
typically slower.
Yeah, and Angel and I, we just had a coaching call with one of our clients the other day, and we were talking to him. He had the idea of like, hey, I want to launch a back to school program, and can you put that on, the landing page and stuff like that to promote it? And he's like, all of a sudden, comes September, it's Labor Day, right? It's Labor Day in September. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
I just always think of Labor Day, and I know the number one rule is you can't wear white pants after Labor Day, right? Is that the rule?
I
Um,
think so.
yeah, which I never wear white pants, so it doesn't affect me anymore. But my leather white pants. But what we were talking about is like the idea of like running specials and just making things to your point, like your holiday readiness program that you were teaching everybody about around the holiday season. Like just to make it easy, just even take one of your programs and just like sell people that that's what this program is. Like, hey, this is kind of a limited time thing. Our 3 week board and train is actually our back to school program where we focus on like, getting ready, getting manners ready and stuff like that to go back and be in a classroom setting or however you want to frame it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But just something to make people feel like, oh, that makes sense. Like this is like relevant to the time of year, and it makes them feel like they're getting some sort of specialty thing and discounted thing. And it just that stuff works. I mean, there's a reason why I said this on the call the other day. There's a reason why like companies like Amazon and Apple do sales. It's because they work, and there's a reason
Yeah.
why I know sometimes people say like I don't want to, cheapen my brand or something like that. It's like Apple is not cheapening their brand by like doing a sale where it's like if you buy an iPhone, you get an iPad for free, or you buy a laptop, you get an iPad for free, or something like that. They just know that it brings in more business and it's profitable. Same thing with Amazon. It's like it doesn't cheapen their brand when they add on a tick box to just click it, and you get 15% off any sort of product you're buying. It's like this stuff works, apply it in your business. I'm not saying you need to do it all year round. And certain times people are like, I can't afford to do it. Inflate your prices to accommodate it. Every business does that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned, Amazon, they have Prime Day, I think
Mm-hmm.
it is. I
Yep.
don't actually know why they do that, if there's a reason behind it, or if it's just like a national Amazon holiday. But yeah, Prime Day that goes
Yeah.
on for like a weekend where everything is like super duper discounted. Like
Yeah.
people shop on Amazon all day, every day throughout the year, but they know that this Prime Day is just going to bring in a crap ton more for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually used to sell on Amazon. I had like an Amazon seller account, and that was always such a big day. Like everyone had to get more, you had to focus on getting enough inventory to cover you on Prime Day. And it's a brilliant, what does that even mean, Prime Day? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's just an invented holiday that they've created, or it's the same thing with like Black Friday and stuff like that. It's like these are the greatest marketing ploys in the world. It's no different than just any sale altogether. It's so funny when people point this out that it's like, I got a really good deal. I got this handbag for $800. Normally it sells for 1,200. It's like, congrats, you still just bought something for $800 and the company made money off of it. Not that that's a bad
Yeah.
thing, right? Like, I'm not trying to demonize people making money at all, but I'm just saying that like this is the psychological stuff that happens and people think about, that they feel like they got a deal. It's no different with dog training. Like they feel like, hey, if you sign up for this program before September 1st, like you get X amount off. Just make the program so that it still is like very profitable for you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like, all this stuff, it's no different for you guys. So just focus on different things that you can leverage, to make things feel more relevant to people, and make them feel like, more compelled to buy. But kind of going back to like, we've covered a lot of the mindset stuff you know, with different times of year and reasons, that people wouldn't buy, being the economy or whatever it may be. But just kind of getting back to like a really practical aspect of this, there's two things I always think about with sales, right? The first one being people always buy from people that they feel like they know, like, and trust, right? So the second thing is make it easy for people to say yes, right? If you follow those two basic principles, your life is going to be a lot easier when it comes to closing people, right? So
Hmm.
the second one, make it easy for people to say yes. Sometimes people make it very difficult to say yes. And you have to look at the ways in your business that you're adding friction to your sales process. Like, first and foremost, having a way to process a payment while you're with the person, right? Like, so many times we've seen this where people are like, I made the sale. Cool. How much did they buy for it? Did they process a payment yet? No, I'm going to send them the invoice later. It's like, okay, we didn't make the sale yet. So have the card reader on you, have the Venmo app open, right? And able to accept money, be able to accept cash, and all these different things. And don't make it like overly complex for people to say yes with like very confusing programs. Like, make the offer nice and simple. Hey, here's what you're going to get. Here are the benefits to doing this. Here are the results you're going to get from doing this program. Here's how much money it costs, right? And then again, going back to a certain percentage of people in America not having $1,000 in their checking account, really test those numbers as far as what you're requiring and how much, if you're putting somebody on a payment plan, how much they would need to pay every single month. It's like, if you make it just so high, all of a sudden people just are not going to be able to afford it. So you can't always expect people to be like $1,000 down and like $1,000 every 2 weeks or even once a month. It's like, it's gonna be a lot of people that say no to that. And if you start doing like, hey, $500 down or $300 down and $200 a month or something like that, it's not ideal. But if you're willing to do that stuff, I guarantee you that will help you get more people across the finish line.
Right. And you mentioned like kind of like streamlining things to make it a little less confusing for the client and easier for them to say yes. Programs, in my opinion, play a huge part in that. And something that I talk to a lot of our clients about often
Yeah.
is not necessarily simplifying your programs, but making them more structured so
Yeah.
that they make sense to the client. And obviously dog training isn't cookie cutter or shouldn't be.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some form of customization to every single program, whether you're doing, a super short basic program or your longest advanced off leash or even behavior mod program. There's always going to be some form of customization to those. But before you get into the customization part, like the entire program should be as structured as possible. And I think that helps with relaying that information to the client and helping it like make sense to them.
Yes. Yep. Be very clear and concise and just like you said, structured about like what people are getting. If they
Yeah.
don't know what they're getting, it's going to be really hard for them to buy something from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, let's wrap it up with that. So, as always, we are super grateful for you guys watching these and all the support we get and stuff like that. I hope you guys are getting value out of them. As always, like if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, dropping a comment, sharing this with a friend, it's really good to help us kind of continue to grow and get this out there to more people. So, we appreciate you guys being here and just supporting us along the way. And we will see you very shortly in the next video. See you guys.
Bye, guys.